America is the richest large economy in the world. Its companies dominate global markets. Its stock market has created enormous wealth. And for decades, American capitalism has been held up as the model others should follow. So why are more Americans beginning to question it? Not because capitalism stopped creating wealth, but because fewer people feel they're sharing in it. For millions of Americans, buying a home feels further away than it did a generation ago. Healthcare keeps getting more expensive. Saving money has become harder. Yet corporate profits and stock prices continue to break records. Somewhere along the way, economic growth and economic opportunity stopped feeling like the same thing. Many people look at this and reach a simple conclusion: capitalism has failed. But that's not what this video argues. The real question is far more uncomfortable. What if the biggest threat to American capitalism isn't socialism, but the way American capitalism works today? That may sound contradictory. After all, capitalism is built on competition, innovation, and the belief that anyone can succeed. But what happens when competition weakens? When wealth becomes increasingly concentrated? When owning assets matters more than working? Competition is a wonderful idea, which may explain why so many successful companies try to avoid it. If those trends continue, the problem isn't just inequality, it's that people slowly stop believing the system works for them. And once that confidence begins to disappear, economic debates stop being about numbers. They become debates about legitimacy. So this video isn't about whether capitalism is good or bad. It's about whether America's version of capitalism is still doing what it was designed to do. And if it isn't, what should change? Before asking whether American capitalism is broken, we should first ask a simpler question. What is capitalism actually designed to do? At its core, capitalism isn't a promise that everyone becomes rich. It's a system designed to solve a problem. How do you encourage millions of people to build businesses, invent new technologies, and take risks? By rewarding success. If you create something people value, you earn profits. If someone builds a better product, they take your customers. The constant competition pushes businesses to improve, lowers prices, and raises living standards over time. In theory, everyone benefits. Consumers get better products, businesses become more efficient, workers become more productive, and the economy keeps growing. Competition is what makes that cycle possible. Without it, capitalism doesn't disappear. It simply starts producing different results. Once companies become powerful enough to avoid real competition, their priorities begin to change. Instead of building better products, protecting their position becomes more profitable. Instead of winning customers, they focus on keeping competitors out. Free markets are remarkably efficient, until the biggest players discover it's even more profitable not to compete. Capitalism was never designed to guarantee equal outcomes, but it was designed to keep opportunity alive through competition. Which leads to the obvious question. If competition is the engine of capitalism, what happens when that engine begins to slow down? For much of the 20th century, the system worked remarkably well. As businesses became more productive, workers generally shared in those gains. Higher productivity led to higher wages. Higher wages expanded the middle class, and a stronger middle class fueled even more economic growth. It wasn't perfect. But each generation could reasonably expect to live better than the one before it. Over the past few decades, something changed. The economy kept growing. Companies became larger. Technology advanced. The stock market reached record highs. Yet for many Americans, everyday life became more expensive. Housing costs surged. Healthcare consumed a growing share of household income. College became far less affordable. And for many workers, wages no longer kept pace with the cost of living. The economy was still creating wealth. It simply wasn't spreading many of its biggest rewards as broadly as before. Competition began weakening across many industries. A handful of companies gained more customers, more data, and more influence. Being large wasn't the problem. Staying large without meaningful competition was. A successful company should win because it builds a better product, not because new competitors never get a fair chance. Ironically, some of the loudest supporters of free markets spend enormous resources making sure nobody competes with them. Another shift was happening simultaneously. More wealth began flowing to people who already owned valuable assets, stocks, real estate, businesses. If you owned them, your wealth often grew faster than your paycheck. If you didn't, catching up became increasingly difficult. Capitalism rewards innovation, but it also rewards ownership, and ownership compounds. That's why today's debate isn't simply about how much wealth America creates. It's about who gets the opportunity to own it. None of this means capitalism only benefits the wealthy. Far from it. Competitive markets have lifted billions of people out of poverty. They have driven innovation, lowered prices, and transformed everyday life. The problem is not that capitalism creates wealth. The problem is who captures most of the wealth once it has been created. Today's economy increasingly rewards ownership as much as labor. If you own shares in successful companies, your wealth can grow even while you sleep. If you own valuable real estate, rising prices can build wealth without requiring another hour of work. If you own neither, your financial future depends almost entirely on your next paycheck. That creates a different kind of inequality, not simply between the rich and the poor, but between people who own productive assets and people who don't. The distinction matters, because wages usually grow slowly. Assets can compound for decades. Money, it turns out, works remarkably hard. Its owners often don't have to. It rarely asks for overtime. This helps explain why wealth inequality has grown faster than income inequality. People who already own appreciating assets continue pulling further ahead. Those trying to build wealth from scratch face a much steeper climb. Supporters argue this is simply the reward for investing and taking risks. Critics argue the system has become increasingly tilted toward existing wealth. Both arguments deserve consideration. The more important question is this: how do you create a capitalist economy with more owners instead of fewer? Because if ownership increasingly determines financial success, expanding ownership may be just as important as expanding opportunity. By now, many people reach the same conclusion. If government taxes the wealthy, expands social programs, or invests more in public services, that must be socialism. But that's not how economists define it. The defining feature of capitalism isn't low taxes, it's private ownership. Businesses are privately owned. Markets allocate most resources. Competition drives investment and innovation. Governments can tax, regulate, and redistribute income without changing that foundation. Socialism is different. The state owns or directly controls a much larger share of economic activity. Those are fundamentally different systems. Confusing redistribution with socialism turns every economic debate into an ideological one. An ideology rarely solves economic problems. The real question isn't whether governments should do nothing or everything. It's where government improves the market and where it gets in the way. Markets are exceptionally good at creating wealth. They are far less effective at preventing monopolies, protecting competition, or ensuring everyone starts with similar opportunities. That's why every successful capitalist economy has rules. Rules that protect competition, rules that prevent market abuse, rules that provide a basic level of economic security. Because a market without rules isn't automatically freer. Sometimes it's simply controlled by whoever became powerful first. If the game only works for the players already winning, calling it a free market starts sounding less like economics and more like marketing. So if replacing capitalism isn't the answer, what is? The solution isn't fewer markets, it's better markets. Markets where competition is real, where success comes from innovation, not market dominance. Where new businesses have a genuine chance to challenge established ones. Protecting competition isn't anti-capitalist. It's one of the most capitalist things a government can do. The next challenge is ownership. If wealth increasingly comes from owning productive assets, then more people need the opportunity to become owners. That doesn't mean guaranteeing equal outcomes. It means expanding access. Employee ownership, long-term investing, affordable housing. A healthy capitalist economy shouldn't create wealth for a small minority alone. It should give millions of people the chance to build wealth over time. Because capitalism performs at its strongest when competition remains open, ownership is broad, and opportunity depends more on talent and effort. Capitalism has never been a perfect system. It has produced financial crises, monopolies, bubbles, and periods of extraordinary inequality. Yet it has also generated more innovation, higher living standards, and more prosperity than any other economic system attempted on a similar scale. The question was never whether capitalism creates wealth. It clearly does. The real question is whether it continues creating opportunity. Because an economy cannot rely forever on record stock prices while millions of people feel they are falling behind. Sooner or later, confidence begins to fade. Not confidence in individual companies, confidence in the system itself. And no economy can thrive for long without trust. America doesn't need to abandon capitalism. It needs a capitalism that rewards innovation without protecting monopolies, that expands ownership instead of concentrating it, that encourages investment without weakening competition, and that gives ordinary people a realistic chance to build wealth, not simply earn a paycheck. History shows that capitalism survives because it evolves. Every generation adjusts the rules to solve the problems the previous one left behind. This generation faces the same challenge, because the real choice isn't between capitalism and socialism. It's between a capitalism that concentrates opportunity and one that expands it. Markets are among humanity's greatest inventions, but they are still tools. The future of American capitalism won't be decided by ideology. It will be decided by whether it continues earning the confidence of the people who live under it. Capitalism isn't failing because it creates wealth. It's being questioned because too many people feel excluded from it. That's an important difference. Economic systems shouldn't be judged by ideology. They should be judged by results. Do they encourage innovation? Do they reward hard work? Do they create opportunity for the next generation? And perhaps most importantly, do people still believe the system works for them? America doesn't have to choose between capitalism and socialism. It has to decide what kind of capitalism it wants. Because in the end, capitalism survives only as long as people believe it gives them a fair chance. If that belief disappears, the economy won't be the only thing that needs rebuilding. Thanks for watching.